Hello, this will be our next lesson, and this is going to be on adding lighting and materials, also a little more making some of the objects. So we'll start by going to File, New, and we're going to make 3 objects in this scene. You can do it in perspective. When I'm starting out, I like using the 4-quad view just to see exactly where everything is. I think some people have really great 2D to 3D reasoning in this interface, and some really benefit from seeing exactly where it is in all 4 views. So I just default to teaching with the 4 views at first. So we're going to make 3 objects. We're going to start. If you watched the first lesson, we went over that you can either hit spacebar to zoom in and out to get the 4-quad views, or you can click over here to change it between perspective and your 4-quad views. I'm going to start by drawing a polyplane. In this top view, I'll click and drag and make it about the length of the object. If I don't love how that looks here, I can scale it, but do know that if you scale something and you want to edit any of its attributes later, either in your channel box or your attribute editor, it can cause some issues. At the very beginning of projects, I tend to like either going into my channel box and finding my width and height here, or in my attribute editor, clicking polyplane and finding my attribute editor here. If I decided I wanted this to be larger, take up more of the space I can. Before we model the other 2 objects, I do want to use this time to explain a concept called normals. Normals are which part of an object is visible or renders. So if you look at this, it's gray, it has a face, and I can map textures on this. Lighting will see it. But if I go underneath, it's not just the shadows. I could flip it all the way over and see that it's black. That's because this side doesn't have what's called a normal or a renderable area. You can force things like making both sides render, but it's actually better for the computer a lot of times to have these normals, because what it will say is, if I were playing like a video game and I had a mountain, it's going to increase my processing time to render both the outside, which we see, and the inside, which you don't see. And we'll go over that in a later lesson. But do know that's the concept of normals. If I did this, let me go ahead and grab these and pull them. Well, I've really just broken this model. I have renderable areas here and here, but then all these black areas are not renderable. And I kind of took like the inside, pulled it through the outside. If that was a person, we would be going to the hospital. Right now, we're just going to cause a lot of errors. So don't do that. We're going to go ahead and draw a sphere on there. It'll appear in the floor, so after you draw the sphere, you can use the Move tool, either by selecting it over here or using the W key to lift that up. And then we're going to draw a cube next to it, so we can click, drag out the height, drag out the width, and then frame it so you're looking at these 2 objects. Now, there's default textures. They're all the same. There's default lights in the scene. And if I were to click this eyeball, this is your render view. Right now it's defaulting to render to something called Arnold. And this is going to be a ray trace render or a global illumination or several names that all mean it calculates how particles of light bounce in the scene. But if I were to hit play, you will see absolutely nothing. That's because I don't have any Arnold compatible lights in this scene. We'll do this in a later lesson, but let's start with the basic lights. So instead of having an Arnold view, I'm going to click my render settings, which are over here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 over. Looks like a little clapboard with a gearbox. If you prefer words, you can click on this modeling area over here, go to rendering, then in my render area, go to render settings. Here, I can change render using from Arnold Renderer to Maya software. This will show what those default lights look like. So the interface changes a little, but I'm still going to hit the button on the left. It's just a default light. I could also change it to Maya hardware. And this is going to render what it looks like more in the viewport. So let me change that back to Maya software. But let's talk about how to get some materials and some lights in here. Your lights are actually not in this lighting shading menu. The menu I go to for lights is Create, Lights, and there's multiple options. Your ambient light is going to make 1 light, and everything will light up from that light. I can either go to my window and keep creating lights here, Or if I click on my light and I go to my attribute editor, I have this ambient light shape and it has a light type here. So I can click on this. The next one in the stack is the directional light. And this adds one light in the entire scene. It's kind of like a wall of light, think like the sun, and it's going to be shining in the direction of the arrows. Lights, like your objects, can be rotated, they can be moved. If I wanted it at this angle, I wanted to light up that cube a little more, I don't have to have it right on the side of the cube. I just change the angle, and then I have my light. The next one in your list is a point light, and your point light is like a light bulb. So if I render that, I have one light, it's shining like a light bulb, it hits the object. If I move it, you're going to notice that change. If you're trying to duplicate the lighting in something like a room or a house, you can go ahead and hit Shift and D for duplicate. That will copy this light. I'm going to delete that one. And my next lights are a spotlight, area light, and volume light. A spotlight, you've probably had experience with it if you've ever done tech crew or theater. If you've ever used a flashlight, it's going to look like that. I'm not seeing anything because the light is not hitting my objects. So let me move this. And I haven't really showed many of the attributes here, but the spotlight's one where it's really important to change some of these options. You have your cone angle. That's how wide the spread of the light is. And what you'll notice is that it appears a little softer if I increase that spread. The reason being is the intensity gets spread over the scene. So I can change intensity to make my lights brighter or darker. I can change my cone angle. If I wanted this to fall off a little more realistically, I can also add some decay. I might want a linear decay, which will happen at a steady rate. And while we're here, you also have fog intensity, decay, and shadows tend to be a pretty big area. You can change a shadow color if you want to affect how that light's changing in the shadows, and especially for you duplicating film sets, theater. I said one of my next ones is my area light. And what that's going to do is create, so if you think like a light box or your LED lights, that's going to duplicate more of this type of effect. The last one is your volume light. And this one's definitely interesting. So you have the light, and then you have the area that it selects. You can use different shapes like a sphere, a box. Go ahead and scale that up. And what you'll notice is that the light only hits the areas that are in the box. If I were to do a sphere, it's going to be a little different. I can once again scale that up more. I can customize that shape. Change this so it's back here. That'll hit my area a little more. Now, one of the interesting things about this light is that you can change the arc and kind of how much of it hits.